Hi, I'm John Molesky, host of Dialogue, on the set of the program where we just conducted a discussion of Ukraine. That'll be part of our Dialogue broadcast series. With me is Blair Ruble and Mark Medish. And gentlemen, 20 years, about to mark 20 years from the end of the Soviet Union in December. Ukraine, part of that new, what we called then, I guess, what was it, the newly independent states?
Independent states.
Yeah. And give us the big overview. How are things trending in Ukraine 20 years later? Blair, we'll start with you, and Mark will throw it to you in a second.
As in many things, it's good news, bad news. Good news is Ukraine is still independent. It has a lot of resources. It could be an agricultural power. It has human resources. And the bad news is that the political system is clearly not able to capitalize on the assets that the country has.
Mm-hmm. Mark?
Well, I agree with that. I think Ukraine has a clear opportunity still to join the ranks of the leading emerging markets in the world. It has a clear opportunity to get closer to Europe, to become more integrated. But it lacks the clarity of purpose in its own government to achieve those goals, and time is a-wasting.
You know, the clarity of purpose point it's interesting in that I remember talking about the fall of the Soviet Union. Some of my first involvement with the Wilson Center, working with Rob Litvak at the time, was a series of programs with the former Dialogue host George C.A. about the post-Cold War era. You know, what do we call it? What do we call it? How do we organize our thinking? What are our sort of focal points for this organization principle that you're talking about, Mark? Is Ukraine part of this larger global drift where we're still struggling to redefine the way nations interact?
It's part of a larger global drift, but I think Ukraine also got the name Ukraine comes from borderlands, and it's really caught in the middle, and it's pulled in many different directions. And I think that unlike some of the countries a little bit further to the west that had a clear orientation towards joining the EU, Ukraine really hasn't sorted out what Ukraine should be, who it is, where it should go. And so I think it's a much more pronounced version of what may be a more general story.
Mark, what does 20 years represent in regards to a country repurposing itself and redefining itself? Is it a long time or a little time?
Oh, I think it's just chapter one, the thing is that the renewal has to be constant. And so even though it's very early in the story, it is far too early for complacency. What worries me is that again, this lack of focus, lack of strategy, and lack of responsibility, frankly.
Gentlemen, thank you. And if you'd like to see more from our guests and hear more from them on Ukraine, visit us on the web at wilsoncenter.org. You'll see the tab for TV and radio. Click there and you can find the entire 30-minute discussion on Dialogue. Thanks.